You missed a part. I'm not making an episode on the Excalibur arc. The cast plays a video game for 3 episodes and gets a cool sword. There's no real-life character development at all, which is the thing that I'm kind of vaguely using to tie all these videos together. So, no. I'm not doing it. We're jumping straight into Mother's Rosario. Mother's Rosario is the best arc of Sword Art Online. Now, depending on your opinion of SAO, that statement can mean something, or it can ultimately mean very little. Regardless, I think the merits of this arc are distinct enough to make it stand out from even the Aincrad arc, which has such a phenomenally good premise to only last 14 episodes. But what exactly does this 7-episode arc do that leads me to that conclusion? Let's get into it. Right from the start of the arc, we're looking at things from a different viewpoint. Rather than following Kirito, we're seeing things from Asuna's perspective. As much as I like Kirito, he's not a particularly interesting character. Much like 90% of all other shonen protagonists, he's kind, smart, and motivated mostly by helping other people. His reduction to a supporting role leaves room for other characters to step into the spotlight, which is honestly a much better place for it to be. After all, even when we've seen a bit of what his home life is like, that was mainly focused on Suguha's feelings rather than Kirito himself. So, with the perspective change to Asuna, we get to see a bit more of her life and learn more about her. We learn that her family's quite well off and that they have high expectations for Asuna, particularly her mother. Oh yeah, that's a point. Parents. I'd forgotten these children have them, considering they are never around. Yes, there are adults in the show, but Klein seems to see the gang as more his peers than significant juniors, and Agel hasn't played much of a role in the series since leaving SAO. So finally getting to see how Asuna's mother reacts to her daughter spending more time on something that, from her perspective, stole 2 years of her life, is really something that's been a long time coming. And the conflict between them is something that serves to highlight one of the underlying themes of the show. What is reality? Okay, maybe that's a bit much, but SAO constantly brings up the question of whether a virtual reality is real. Well, by definition it has reality in the name, so I suppose yes. But this question is brought to the forefront of your mind in the ongoing battle between Asuna and her mother. From her mother's perspective, Asuna was unconscious for 2 years. She effectively lost 2 years of her life, which could never be regained. But the same isn't true from Asuna's point of view. She spent those 2 years fighting, developing, meeting people, growing as a person. To the people trapped in SAO, those 2 years weren't blank time that just disappeared. They were years that they lived, simply in a different reality. This discrepancy plays a large part in the conflict between Asuna and her mother, as her mother tries to persuade Asuna to get her life back to where it would have been without the SAO incident and fulfill the expectations placed upon her, not respecting the fact that Asuna's an adult at this point, with her own dreams of what she wants for her future. The arguments between them bring up genuinely solid points for both sides. Asuna really is 2 years of education behind others her own age, which will likely have an effect on her career prospects. Her mother's argument that the SAO children are all kept in the same school to be monitored also certainly holds of merit. However, Asuna's statement that she should get to choose what to do with her life and that her mother is limiting her options is also fair, as her mother rather hypocritically says that Asuna should marry the correct person to do what she wants, ignoring the fact that what Asuna wants is to marry Kirito, I guess, at this point. Also, her dismissal of Kirito as a worthwhile partner is based entirely on her own biases against full dive technology, considering the fact that he actually worked for the government in the previous arc and will continue to do so in future. Asuna's disagreements with her mother come up a couple of times throughout the arc, and it's only when Asuna convinces her mother to join her in the log cabin in SAO that her mother is able to begin to understand the reality that Asuna perceives, and the reality that can be created through the use of full dive technology. Which of course brings us to the deuteragonist of this arc, Yuuki Kono. We first hear of her as a mysterious swordsman, or swordswoman I suppose, challenging people to 1v1 duels and being seemingly unbeatable. However, her duel with Asuna convinces her to invite Asuna to join the Sleeping Knights, a guild of friends who want to beat a floor boss of Aincrad on their own, as the guild is going to disband soon, and they want to achieve something before then, so they're looking for a tough fighter to be their final member. Asuna strikes up a close friendship with Yuuki, sharing in the struggles of the knights as they attempt to defeat the boss of Floor 21, only to be met with another group trying to steal the glory from underneath them, something which had apparently happened before. Fortunately, Kirito arrives, as obviously he has to have at least one really cool moment in each arc. And to be fair, I actually really like this scene and the way it was written, because Kirito doesn't take any of the glory and help them to fight the boss. He instead acts as the cavalry, holding back the faceless mooks so the Sleeping Knights can attempt the floor boss uninterrupted. Him not being the main protagonist makes this moment of being unreasonably powerful less threatening to the story, and instead allows the interesting story to happen to other people. He's a more useful character when he functions as a mentor for other characters, rather than being the sole focal point of the show. Anyway, they beat the floor boss and Asuna celebrates with them before Yuuki logs out and isn't heard from for several days. Asuna is directed to a hospital, where we then learn the truth about Yuuki. She lives her entire life in virtual reality. Due to complications with her birth, her mother was given infected blood, and Yuuki has acquired immune deficiency syndrome. She's kept in a sterilized room, constantly hooked up to monitors, because her immune system has all but entirely shut down. And the reason she really wanted to beat the floor boss was to leave behind some evidence of her life, because the doctors predict that she has approximately 3 months left to live. Ooh, that was a bit heavy. Finally, we see the potential that the advanced technology of SAO has beyond just making death games and murdering people. The full dive technology is letting a girl who is otherwise trapped in a room experience the outside world. And the series doesn't stop there, picking up something Kirito has been doing in the background of the arc, advancing AI and tech integration for Yui. Using the camera he's been setting up for Yui and attaching it to Asuna's shoulder, Yuuki gets to spend a day at school, something she hasn't been able to do for years. After almost 2 seasons of pretty solid action sequences, we finally get to, in my opinion, the single best episode of the show so far. Because the show finally slowed down, letting us actually form connections with the characters and getting to know them as people. We're that much more invested in the things they do and what happens to them, rather than, oh, she died, that sucks, and, oh, wow, that was cool, response that has populated the majority of the rest of the series. That's why Yuki's final day is so emotional. Her teaching Asuna mothers Rosario in order to leave something else behind in the world, and her prolonged goodbye, as first the rest of the Sleeping Knights arrived, then the Kirito crew, and ultimately the entire population of ALO. In the short time we've spent with her, remember it's only been 7 episodes, Yuuki manages to leave a mark on both the series and in our hearts, and that's why this is the best arc of SAO. 君が描いた未来の世界はいつかの空に導かれて